It marks 1 year since the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, allowing states to ban abortion. And on the year, people on both sides across the country are gathering to make their voices heard. Since the Supreme Court ended the constitutional right to abortion, 15 states have passed severely limiting access to reproductive care, leaving women in those states with few options.
We will never rest and never relent until we restore the sanctity of life to the center of American law in every state in the land.
Each one of you demonstrates what we already knew. The people of this country believe in abortion access for all of us and are ready to stand and fight for it.
President Biden signed a new, largely symbolic executive order calling on federal agencies to expand access to contraception. In a statement, the president says the overturning of Roe v. Wade has already had devastating consequences, saying abortion bans have put the health and lives of women in jeopardy. He is calling on Congress to act to restore the protections of Roe v. Wade. Now, here in Kentucky, the fight continues. The Commonwealth is one of the states with a trigger law on the books, which outright banned abortion except in instances to save the mother's life. WHAS11 Night Team's Taylor Woods and photojournalist Elijah McKenzie have a look back on the year it's been.
1 year ago, hundreds of Kentuckians took to the streets in protest of the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. For Kentucky, its impact was immediate as the state's trigger law took effect, banning abortion in most cases. For the pro-life side, it marked a victory decades in the making.
And a victory for human life, for unborn children, and for the rule of law.
Saturday, Democratic Congressman Morgan McGarvey discussed how reproductive rights for women have been taken away.
The results have been dramatic, they have been drastic, they have been devastating. Right now in Kentucky, no woman can receive an abortion, even in cases of rape or incest.
The Family Foundation wants to see continued support to protect unborn life.
Moving forward to provide women and families the resources that they need to raise their children.
McGarvey added the work does not stop here. He's part of a group to push the Women's Health Protection Act to help women get safe access to abortion care.
We filed a motion this week to push that bill forward to make sure it gets a vote on the House floor. We need just a few Republicans to join us in that effort.
One lawsuit challenging the Kentucky abortion ban has been withdrawn so far.
And whether or not they want to participate in a high-profile lawsuit in this climate, it's very difficult to find that person to come forward.
However, Planned Parenthood is reminding Kentuckians they are not going anywhere.
These doors stay open. Through thick and thin, we will be fighting for the future we know is possible.
Ultimately, we want to move towards a society where abortion is just unthinkable, and that each and every unborn child is welcomed into this world as a blessing.
A historic decision 1 year ago today, motivating both sides to keep on fighting. In Louisville, Taylor Woods, WHAS11 on your side.
Kentucky is facing a huge need, healthcare in general, but particularly maternal healthcare. 70 out of the 120 counties don't have any OBGYN provider.
Nearly half of Kentucky's counties are classified as maternity care deserts. It's part of the reason some providers have decided to stay in the Commonwealth despite limitations to care. Dr. Alicia Fields is one of those doctors. She moved back to Kentucky around this time last year when the news first leaked of a Supreme Court draft opinion. That was May 2022.
It was never a question of, will I go back to Kentucky or not? Because I knew there was that need, but it was more of, what is my role going to be now? Because I can't provide abortions here. Kentucky has stipulations for like the life of the mother. So if there is enough concern that the mother's life is in danger, then you can intervene. The hard thing is waiting until that moment puts the patient at a lot of risk.
Despite limitations imposed on her practice, Fields says patients regularly thank her for the work her clinic does. She said her goal is to create a safe space where patients are helped by any means necessary. Now, LMPD is investigating a shooting in the Southland Park neighborhood tonight. Police say just after 9 this evening, officers responded to Strawberry Lane near Estelle Avenue. That's where a man was found shot. First responders transported the man to the hospital. LMPD describes his injuries as serious. Anyone with information about the shooting is encouraged to call the anonymous tip line at 574-LMPD. A Radcliffe woman is facing felony charges after law enforcement found 21 dead dogs inside her home. They also recovered 14 other neglected dogs. Among those dogs dead, officers say, were 2 dogs found decomposing in the woman's car. Her name is Morgan Barrick. She's charged with 36 felonies. We spoke with some of those who trusted Barrick to care for their dogs back in May when she was first arrested.
I never once thought that my dog was being starved and tortured and burnt.
I can't even bring him home in a box, and she doesn't have any sort of remorse or any explanation.
Of her arrest, Barrick was a well-known kennel owner. She is scheduled to appear in court next May. All right, over in southern Indiana, no jail time for the former owner of the Jeffersonville Funeral Home, where 31 decomposing bodies and 17 sets of cremains were recovered last July. Randy Langford pled guilty to 43 felony charges last month. Friday, a judge sentenced him to 4 years of supervised release, with one of those years being spent under house arrest. During his sentencing, Langford had to hear from some of the dozens of families impacted.
Put yourself in my shoes, Mr. Langford. What if this were your only son? Can you imagine the last time you got to see your child was in an almost completely decomposed state because the person you entrusted him with was negligent?
While he sat expressionless throughout all 7 victim impact statements, Langford then offered up words of remorse to the families.
I want you to know that there's not a day that goes by that I do not regret my decisions, that I don't regret the actions that I displayed.
These 20 families are now suing Langford in various civil cases. He's scheduled to be at a restitution hearing on September 20th. Kentucky's juvenile justice system is once again under a microscope. Tuesday, Kentucky youth advocates spoke before lawmakers in Frankfort about racial disparities within the system and in diversion programs. According to Chief Equity Officer Courtney Downs, data shows black youth are detained at 3 times the rate of representation in the population. Kentucky youth advocates also show data indicates black youth are referred to the adult court system at a significantly higher rate than white youths. They say disparities are the result of biases and policies that push inequitable access. However, advocates also noted the state's diversion programs have had good results.
The outcomes essentially are clear for the kids who do have to go to court. They are more likely to be rearrested. They're more likely to be subsequently incarcerated. They're more likely to engage in violence in their communities and also to be associated with more delinquent peers.
Downs notes diversion programs help in preventing youth crime and should remain a priority to lawmakers. All right, a dramatic turn of events overnight in Russia's war against Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin addressing the nation after the leader of the Russian paramilitary Wagner group called for an armed rebellion against the Kremlin's defense minister and started marching towards Russia. Now that leader announcing he's turning around to prevent Russian bloodshed. ABC's Derek Dennis has the latest.
Russian state TV reporting what it called an attempted mutiny by the head of the Wagner paramilitary group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, his army of mercenaries taking over defense and intelligence security buildings in Rostov-on-Don, a key Russian military hub near Ukraine. He then ordered his tanks and military to head north towards Moscow.
Mama!
A major oil depot exploding as Wagner troops advanced. Video circulating online shows military helicopters being fired on by Wagner forces. An angry Vladimir Putin addressed the nation, saying he'd been stabbed in the back and warning of civil war.
It's the first time that Putin's control in decades has been challenged. So his control, the facade of control, has been weakened, which in turn will weaken his control of his regime.
But then his troops less than 200 miles from Moscow, Prigozhin announcing a halt, saying he wanted to avoid Russian bloodshed. Wagner fighters seen cheering as they pulled out of Rostov. The Kremlin says Prigozhin's decision was negotiated by Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko, a Putin ally. The FSB intelligence agency had opened a criminal case against Prigozhin, but the charges quickly dropped. Ukrainian troops looking to take advantage of the disarray, pressing occupying Russian forces in the south and east of Ukraine. ABC's Ian Panel spoke with President Volodymyr Zelensky's spokesman, Mikhailo Podolyak.
Given what we've seen happening in Russia, do you believe we're now at the beginning of the end of the war in Ukraine?
Without a doubt, it is the beginning of the end. But the problem is this end can last for quite some time, and we have to understand that.
A senior U.S. official tells ABC News the White House has been closely monitoring these developments in real time and coordinating with key American allies. Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley canceling a scheduled trip to the Middle East today, instead speaking with his Ukrainian counterpart. Derek Dennis, ABC News, New York.